I've told this story to exactly one person before today, and she didn't believe me. I don't blame her. I barely believe it myself, and I was the one sitting in that cabin for 14 hours waiting for daylight. This is the first time I've talked about it out loud since that February, and if I sound a little off at the start, that's why. I want you to understand something before I get into the details. I'm not the type to invent things. I'm a structural engineer. I deal in load-bearing facts. What I'm about to tell you is what happened. It was a rental property up in the northeast kingdom of Vermont, about 40 miles from the Canadian border. I had found it online the previous fall and booked it specifically for the isolation. My girlfriend and I had just split up. January had been brutal at work, and I needed 3 days where no one could reach me. The drive up from Boston was 4 hours. The last 30 minutes were on an unpaved forest road that the rental company had described with what I now consider criminal optimism as seasonally accessible. The cabin itself was small but solid. 2 rooms, a wood stove, a propane range, a hand pump for water. The nearest town was a 20-minute drive on good roads. These were not good roads. The first evening was perfect, honestly. I stacked firewood on the porch, made a simple dinner, and went to bed early with a book. The second day, I hiked the property in the morning, sat by the frozen creek in the afternoon, and felt, for the first time in months, like I could actually breathe. My cell signal had been 1 bar and unreliable since I'd arrived, which I'd expected. By dinner on that second night, it was showing no service at all. I wasn't worried. I had food for 5 days and the wood stove was running clean. Then around 9 in the evening, the wind picked up and I stepped outside to check the sky. The clouds were moving fast and low from the northwest, and the temperature had dropped at least 15 degrees since sundown.
By midnight, the snow was coming down in near whiteout conditions. I couldn't see the tree line from the porch. I checked my phone again, still no signal, and then did something that should tell you what my headspace was. I felt relieved. I thought, good, no one can expect anything from me now. I sat with the stove radiating heat and the storm howling outside and felt genuinely at peace. Then sometime around 2 in the morning, I heard something underneath the wind. I turned down the radio I'd brought and listened. The storm was loud, but this was different, irregular in a way the wind wasn't. I convinced myself it was a branch hitting the side of the cabin and went back to my book. I heard it again around 3. This time there was no mistaking it for a branch. It was a voice, a human voice, coming from somewhere to the northwest of the cabin, muffled by the storm but rhythmic in a way that felt like speech. My first thought was another hiker, someone caught out in the storm, which happens. My second thought was that nobody would be out hiking at 3 in the morning in a blizzard 40 miles from anywhere. I went to the window and pressed my face against the glass, but it was dark and the snow was thick and I couldn't see anything beyond the first few feet of the porch. And then the voice got closer and I heard it clearly for the first time. It said my name, it said it in Cam's voice. Cameron Park was my closest friend from college. We'd done half a dozen camping trips together in our 20s before life pulled us to opposite coasts. He'd moved to Portland. I was in Boston. We hadn't seen each other in over a year, but we talked every couple of weeks, and I knew his voice the way you know a voice after 10 years of knowing someone. And whatever was outside my cabin spoke in that voice with complete accuracy. Not similar, not an approximation. It said my name, and it said it exactly the way Cam says my name. The slight drop at the end, the way it came out like a question even when it wasn't one. Then it said, "Hey man, my truck broke down. Can you open up?" I stood very still in the middle of the cabin, and did not move for a long time. The rational part of my brain cycled through explanations. Sound travels strangely in the cold. The wind can distort voices. I was tired and isolated, and my mind was patterned, matching against someone I cared about. All of that was possible. But I knew Cam's voice, and this was Cam's voice, and Cam was 3,000 miles away. The thing outside called my name again, and then it said something that made my stomach drop. It said, "Come on, it's freezing out here. It's like that time we got stuck outside the cabin in the Adirondacks. Remember, just let me in." We had gotten stuck outside a cabin in the Adirondacks. A specific trip, a specific night 7 years ago. I had never told anyone else that story. I moved to the window again, slowly. The storm had settled into a steadier snowfall, and I could see perhaps 10 or 12 feet into the yard. There was a figure standing at the edge of the tree line. It was human-shaped, roughly, and it was standing completely still, which was the first thing that was wrong. Because if you're freezing in a blizzard and you've been calling out to someone, you move toward them, you wave your arms. This figure just stood at the exact boundary between the yard and the trees, as though it couldn't or wouldn't cross the open ground. Then, while I was watching, it tipped its head back and called my name again in Cam's voice, and I watched its mouth do it, and the angle was wrong. The mouth was open too wide, the neck bent too far. I stepped back from the window and sat down on the floor and did not look outside again for a while. The voice kept changing its approach. It said it was hurt. It said the cold was getting to it. It said things that were accurate about my friendship with Cam. Details about places we'd been, things we'd talked about, a specific joke we'd shared for years about a disastrous camping meal in upstate New York. Each detail landed like something cold pressing against the inside of my chest. I didn't understand how it could know those things. I still don't. At one point, the voice went quiet for about 20 minutes, and the silence was worse than the noise, because I kept thinking it was coming around to the other side of the cabin. The hardest moment was around 5 in the morning. The voice had gone quiet again, and I was exhausted. The fire needed more wood, and I was starting to shake a little from the combination of cold and fear and sleeplessness. For about 2 minutes, I genuinely considered opening the door. Not because I believed it was Cam, I'd moved past that, but because the alternative, sitting on that floor until dawn with something intelligent and wrong circling the cabin in the dark, felt unsurvivable. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand how it works. It doesn't have to convince you of what it is. It just has to make the door seem like the easier option.
The snow stopped sometime before 6. By 7, there was thin grey light coming through the east window, and I hadn't heard anything since around 4:30. At 8, I made myself stand up and go to the window. The yard was white and still and undisturbed. I waited another hour, then another. At 10 in the morning, I unlocked the door and stepped out onto the porch. The cold was absolute, well below zero. Everything silent and sharp. I walked across the open yard to the edge of the tree line where I had seen the figure standing. There were tracks in the snow, not human tracks. The shape was wrong, the spacing was wrong, the depth inconsistent in a way that suggested weight that shifted unevenly, as if whatever left them couldn't quite decide how it was supposed to distribute itself. They led back into the trees, and I didn't follow them. What I did find at the spot where the figurehead stood was a patch of compacted snow packed flat and dense, as if something heavy had been there for a very long time without moving. And pressed into the center of that packed snow was the outline of a hand, fingers spread the way you'd press a hand down if you were kneeling and using it for balance, except it had 6 fingers. I drove out on the unplowed road, got stuck twice, and kept moving. I called Cam from a diner payphone when I reached the town. He was in Portland. He'd been home all weekend. He'd never heard of the cabin.